Hi, I'm John Trischler with SPV Parts, and today we are going to install a Raptor 6-pod fog light kit with the rigid Radiance fog light. So whether you are looking for rigid lights for your Raptor or Baja Designs, the Radiance version, or the Pro Series, this installation video will show you how to install those. So first, we've got our brackets. Our later models do not have the word driver on there. They actually have the driver cut out of the bracket itself. So look for the D down here in the corner. But this is a driver bracket. This is the way it goes. This is the back side. This is going to go up against the bumper like this behind there. This is the bottom side. This is where your lights are going to attach and hang down from. All right, next we have our Radiance lights. Or in this case, it could be the Pro lights from Rigid or any of the Baja Designs lights as well. I wanted to point out one thing here really quick so people understand about the Radiance lights versus the Pro lights. The Radiance lights do not have plugs on the end. You'll notice that these are bare wires. This is just how they come right out of the box. On the Pro Series Rigid lights, they will have the little gray Deutsch connector plugs. I don't know why Rigid doesn't put plugs on the Radiance series lights. With the Radiance series, we are going to give you a custom one-piece harness, which is going to have all your wiring that you're going to need. And it's going to match up to the bare wiring as you see in the box. Red, black, and white. The red wire is for the fog light itself. Each wire, and you can't see it in the video, so you'll just have to look when you, obviously when you get them, but each wire is numbered 1, 2, and 3 as far as the red wires go. This way you can match up your lights on each side, 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3. So if you did put them on separate switches, when you turn the switches on, they're going to light up in pairs in order. Otherwise, they could light up in any configuration. So you obviously don't want that. But again, your wires are numbered 1, 2, and 3, and that would be the red wire. The black wires do not matter which light that they go to because it's a ground, and they're all going to meet together at one common ground. So you'll pick a 1, put it on one light, pick any of the black wires for a ground, and so on. Same thing with the white. The white wires are exclusive to the Radiance series only. The white wires are to power the amber backlight. So when you connect these wires, you just want to match up the colors. White to white, red to red, and black to black. Included with the harness, we are going to give you these butt connectors. And butt connectors are pretty simple. They have a plastic coating on the outside so they're not going to short out, touch anything metal, and conduct any electricity and so on. Basically, they're open on each end. You are going to take a crimping tool and you are going to crimp down on one end of one wire. You'll put the other end from either the harness or the light into the other end here. You're going to crimp down on the other end. And that's it. Your wire's done. On the Pro Series kit, if you do get one of the Pro Series kits, you'll notice when you order it on the order page, the custom harness is optional and not standard. We want to make sure that you have everything to install your light kit completely, but we don't necessarily give you items included in there and raise the price if you don't need them. There are a few options and we put them in there so you can select yes or no that may help cosmetically, and I'll go over those things here really quick, that may improve some cosmetics, the way they install, or the ease of install, but they aren't required. So rather than just raise the price artificially and say it's included, we keep the price as low as possible, give you the option as low as possible for the option. You can add it or not add it. So let me go through that real quick. So on the Pro Series, the reason that it's not included and the reason it's not required is because each of the Pro lights will come with its own generic harness from Rigid. You can get by with the generic harnesses that come in the boxes with the lights. It's not ideal, but you can get by with it. So we keep that price down again and give you the option to add the custom harness. If you add the custom harness on the Pro Series lights, you will automatically already have the plugs, the upgrades on that harness as well. The plugs themselves here are pretty expensive. These 3-way plugs are a little bit more expensive than the 2-ways, but for 12, 6 of one end and 6 of the other, and all the pins and so on, they're about 60 bucks. So again, if this is something that's really important to you, I'll put those on the website so that you can buy those. We do get those so that for those customers that really, really want those, you'll be able to get those without having to look too hard. But again, it's an expensive option. So if you want to just get by, it's not like you're going to be unplugging them often, if ever, probably. You can just use the included crimp connectors, butt connectors, and crimp the wires together, and you're good to go. That's included. Again, that's one of the reasons that these harnesses, the custom harnesses that are an option, also include the plugs to match up to the Pro Series lights if you go with the Pro Series. Another thing you can do, if you wanted to get by a little cheaper, but you still wanted to be able to plug your lights in and out, is you can get a bunch of these bullet connectors. And what a bullet connector is, pretty basic. It's just for one wire, so it's not as simple as unplugging 3 at one time and plugging 3 in at one time like with those other Deutsch connectors. But you put these on each end of each wire, and you're still gonna have to match up red to red and white to white and black to black. But you have a female and a male connector, but you will crimp the end here and the other end here. And then once you have those 2 wires, you will be able to just plug these in like so. They come in, I mean, you can get them anywhere, any auto store, you can even get them at Walmart. But bullet connectors are very common and easy to, and cheap to get. This is, and we talked about this in another video, so I'm going to be really brief on that, but this is the standard bracket that comes with your lights, okay? And the way that this bracket mounts to your light is it mounts on the bottom. You see the holes right here. See the holes right here. All right, so this bracket is going to mount just like this to those holes. So it comes out the top, as you see, or actually the bottom, I'm sorry, like this. Comes out the bottom right there. All right, and the reason that this bracket is designed like this is because it's on this slot. If you wanted to mount it from the back, it could swivel like this and you can mount it from the back side. But in this purpose, to aim the lights forward, it would mount right like this and the bracket would come off the bottom. You see what's wrong with that picture? For some people, this may bother you. It doesn't change the way that the light works, how much light you have, the direction. It goes out uniformly, whether it's like this or like this. But the problem is, if this is a cosmetic thing that bothers you, and it does a lot of people, because the brackets mount like this from the top, this needs to mount like this. That puts the words rigid upside down. Now to fix that, there is an optional bracket. This is the optional bracket, and what it does, as you see here, the holes there, we can turn our light the other direction now. We can slide that long bracket in all the way to the bottom, and there we have it now mounting from the top with the words rigid right side up. Now, you don't have to get these brackets. Take a black marker on the front of the case like this so you really don't see the words, and that's it. But if that bothers you and you want the words right side up, you'll see the option on both the Pro Kit and the Radiance Kit to have the extended brackets. But that's what the flip brackets are, because they flip the lights. All right, now the last option we have here is our Radiance backlight wire. Again, this is an option. The standard way that you can connect your amber backlights to the fog lights to your vehicle, or if you had the rear kit like the 360 kit, for example, which we covered in another install video, the white wire from that, you would connect that to one of your auxiliary switches. That's the standard way. So let's say that you put your lights on switches 1, 2, and 3. You could put your backlight, now when I say backlight, I mean the amber, not lights in the back of your truck. Backlight meaning the light behind. Your backlight, you can connect your backlight wire to, say, switch number 6 or say switch number 5. Both switch number 5 and 6 are only 5 amps. They're not going to power very many things. But in this case, the amperage on the amber and the red backlights for our Radiance series light are so low that you'd have no problem with that. Now the switches themselves, when you turn the switches on, they're going to power the lights as long as the ignition's on. If you turn the ignition off, it powers down the switch panel. So if you leave switch number 6 on, for example, and you had your amber backlight wire connected to switch number 6, every time that you turn the truck off, it's going to power off. And when you turn it on, it's going to power on. That's the standard simple way, but we actually came up and developed a new product, which is this backlight wire kit. And the reason we created this backlight wire kit is because there are several customers out there that want to use all their switches. They want all 6 of them. They don't want to tie up a switch. They just want the lights to come on when the truck comes on and go off when the truck goes off. And so we developed this. The other way to do that is a way that we definitely don't recommend, and a way that people in the past have gotten themselves in trouble, which is to splice into factory wiring, say behind the headlight into like the marker lights here in the grill, or another wire in some other harness. Again, anytime you're cutting factory wiring, you're running the risk of warranty issues. So we tried to eliminate those from the installation process. Your switches are designed to be standalone. They're designed to have components added to them. They're not tied to anything electronically in the truck. They are their own entity. So to eliminate the possibility of warranty concerns by cutting into factory harnesses so that you don't have to use your switch wires, we created this product. And this product, this backlight wire kit, utilizes a special pin, a Ford pin, and it goes into a socket, and we haven't installed video for that, so I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm just going to explain it. It goes into a socket in a plug-in in the passenger side kick panel near the fuse panel. And that will, when you slide that pin in, no installation required, you just slide the pin in, it clips right in place. You plug the plug back in, this wire is then live, it gives you ignition power, and you will be able to power your backlights on ignition. So you turn the ignition on, you got your backlights, you turn it off, turns them off. And then you've got your backlights without tapping into any factory wiring and without utilizing your switches. So that is another option if you decide to go that route. Many people do. It's a pretty popular thing. All right, so now we're ready to get started, and we're gonna go ahead and get started installing these lights into this Raptor. We need to know what tools to use, right? So let's take a look at the tools. We have a standard crimping tool, and they're gonna come in all shapes and sizes. Hopefully you know what a crimping tool is, but again, you just need that to crimp down on either bullet connectors or the supplied butt connectors that are going to crimp down on the wires, on the ends of the wires. So you need a standard set of crimping tools. You are going to need some zip ties. We don't include the zip ties, but you can get those at any hardware store. Zip ties are going to be used to just secure your wiring. Our wrenches. All right, so we are going to need, first off, this is a 4.0 Allen key. And the Allen key is going to be used to put the little screws in the sides of the lights into the brackets. You're going to need a ratchet, and you're going to need an extension and a 13mm socket. Now, if you don't have an extension and you'd rather use a deep well socket, you can use that as well. But you'll just need a little longer socket. And the reason why is because you're gonna wanna get past this bracket here to get to your bolt where this is gonna go. So 13mm and a ratchet. Then you're gonna need a couple of wrenches. Now I like these ratcheting wrenches because you have no effort, they're just like a ratchet. You're gonna need a 13mm and you're going to need a 10mm. You will also need an 8mm wrench or socket to remove the factory 6mm bolt and sheet metal clip. And that is it for your tools. You'll notice behind the bumper, you have this brace that goes from a piece off of the frame here to the front of the bumper, right there. We need to take this bolt off, and then we're going to remove this clip. All right, as you see, we have removed the bolt and the sheet metal clip from the brace and the hole. All right, so I want to point out here real quick before we install our driver side bracket, you'll notice the D cut out of the bracket here. That D is for driver side. We've got our driver bracket in, and as you see through this hole here, we've got our placement bolt that came with our brackets in through the hole of the brace and through the hole that went through in the bumper. That is securing our bracket now to the bumper, and we are going to put a nut on the other side of this bolt. We also have our carriage bolt through the smaller hole that already exists on the other end here. Looking up through this hole in the bumper as much as we can, you should be able to see the two bolts and nuts on them coming through there. So this is where we're going to need our wrenches on this side. The one to the left is the 10 millimeter, and the one to the right is the larger 13 millimeter. So we're going to need our flat wrenches for those. Now you can see here why we need a flat wrench, because it's a tight space. A lot easier than a hand wrench. That's one of the reasons I like the ratcheting wrenches for this tight space like this. So this is the spot where you're going to need to use your ratchet and your wrench. And basically your wrench is just going to hold the nut on the other side in place while you turn the ratchet to tighten it up. Now obviously I've only got one hand, so I can't completely turn this, so I'm going to have to do that off camera, but you get the idea. Now we're going to tighten this not all the way down yet. We're going to get it really close so that it's a little bit snug, but we can still push it up and down, because as you saw, these bolts and this bracket has a slot, so these bolts can run up and down in the slot. We can push the bracket up higher or down lower, and we're going to position it just right so that our lights look really good and centered when we install them. So I've tightened this down most of the way, not completely tight, but again, tight enough that I can get it where I want it. And then I've pushed the bracket into place, and you see how that metal ridge right there, try to keep it from going out of focus, that metal ridge right there, just along the bottom side of that bracket. You see that? The best position I found is if you get that bracket just about flush with the bottom edge of that lip. So when it stops, you know, about flush there, because now, see, as we move up, it's going to be just barely above that opening, which gives our brackets, when we hang our brackets down, they should be pretty well centered, and the mounting point of the bracket should be above that ridge. So now that we've done that, we're going to go ahead and tighten these bolts the rest of the way, because we have our brackets in place. And if we do need to adjust it anymore afterwards, once we get our lights installed, we'll be able to loosen those bolts a little bit and move them. However, it is a little bit more difficult to do after the lights are installed, because the lights and the bolts get in the way of your wrenches. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we need to install our brackets, or our mini brackets that go into the lights, into the large fog light bracket, as you see, like with the 3 slots. Now it's harder to show you this once it's up in the truck bumper, so I want to show you outside of it first. So you can see down below here, you've got a washer, you've got a lock washer, and then you've got the bolt on top of that. And that's how you want to insert these from the bottom side. So you're going to have your carriage bolt that's going to go through your bracket, your small bracket up through your large bracket. You've got your washer, and you've got your lock nut, or lock washer, I'm sorry, your lock washer, and then your nut. All right, so now we've got 3 brackets installed in the bottom of our main bracket. As you see now, when we move up, that is going to sit flush with that ridge of the front bumper, and then our lights will go inside that. And again, if we need to adjust it a little bit, one end or the other. We can loosen those bolts just a little bit and do that after we get our lights in there. It's just easier if we get it as close as possible before we put our lights in there. All right, so the next thing we need to do is we need to insert our lights in our brackets. Now again, it's difficult to film this up in there, so I'm going to show you outside here so you can see a little bit better and there's better lighting and so on. We're going to need to take one of these nuts and put it down in that hole underneath it here. Now I usually like to do that with one finger holding that in place like this while I take the other hand and I start turning the screw until it starts moving that nut in there. And then once you get that snug down where it's going to be up to that nylon for that lock nut, obviously that's as much as you're going to get from your fingers, then you'll be able to take this Allen wrench and you'll be able to turn that and tighten that up. Now you won't want to tighten it up all the way obviously until you get it positioned right, but you'll want to get it snug so that you can twist, turn, and pull that light side to side, forward and back, and get them straight. So now you can see we've got our first light attached. Now I've got a little bit of leeway here to adjust that light if I need to. I've got it fairly tight here on the top, but I can pull on it or twist it a little bit if I need to go left or right to get that straight in the front here. So when I get all three of these in here, I'm going to stand back and kind of eyeball it so that I can adjust those left and right to get those straight and looking straight ahead. All right, so we've got all three lights installed now. Now we just need to do a little fine tuning to make sure that they're all straight. So I'm going to stand back here and kind of look at it and see, you know, what I need to adjust, what I need to move in any direction so that they're straight. Now I can look at them from the side to make sure that they're aimed correctly in the up and down position. And I notice that this one seems to be a little bit aimed up, so I need to push that one down. These other two look pretty straightforward. So once I get those in their right positions, I'll be able to tighten up all the bolts. All right, so we're all done here on the driver's side and everything's straight and lined up. And we're gonna repeat all these steps on the passenger side now. And once we're done with that, then we can run our wire harness and make our connections. So now we have both sides in. Both sides are lined up, just like we did on the driver's side, the passenger side as well. So now all that is left is to run our harness, which is actually very simple. And we're going to connect our lights and then connect it to our switch wires. So I've laid the harness out here so you can see how it lays out and how it installs. So you'll see the long end here, right there. And in this case, like I said, we put plugs on it. So depending on the harness that you get, the standard Radiance harness does not have plugs on them. But there are plugs on this harness. You can see this long end that has 3 connections goes to the driver side. All right. And then the short end with the 3 connectors or 3 sets of wires for the lights would go to the passenger side. All right, and then we're gonna go down the other length of the harness. It will Y off into 2 pieces. One will be wires, and the other of that Y will have a ring connector on it. This is your ground. So if you see that Y with the ground, the ring connector for the ground, you know that is the area that goes to the switch wires, and your other end goes to your lights. You want to start on the passenger side because you're going to actually throw the wire over from the passenger side behind the bumper here, we're going to show you in just a second, to the driver's side. You'll pull it through. And then you're going to take this end and you're going to pull it straight up through the engine bay and take it alongside the battery. All right, so we're under the bumper. You can see our lights here from the back side. All right, you can see the frame, you see the tire, okay? And we're underneath of this skid plate here under the front bumper. You see right above that skid plate, I've taken that long end that we were talking about and I pushed it across there. So now I'm gonna go to the other side and I'm gonna pull it across and I'm gonna plug it into our lights. This is the other side of that skid plate, and here is the end of my harness. Okay, so I pulled that through. Now I can plug it into my lights. Now I want to keep an eye on which lights I plug into what number. So like, again, these are numbered, whether it has the plugs on them or you get the Radiance standard harness with the butt connectors. Either way, you want to pay attention to these numbers. So this is 2, this one's number 3, this one's number 1. So I'm going to look at my lights up here and which position they're in. And it doesn't matter which one you choose. You just want to keep in mind which one it is depending on which switch you want to put them on. So we're going to make number 1 the far outside. That's probably the easiest thing to do. So number 1, so this is number 1. So 1 on the outside. All right, 2 in the middle. 2 in the middle. All right, and 3 on the far inside. Now they should all match. Okay, now I'm going to go to the other side and I'm going to do the same thing now. 1, we did the far outside. 2, the middle, and 3, the very inner, closest to each other. And again, it doesn't matter which order you put them in as long as you match them up. All right, so we've now secured it here on the passenger side. We zip tied some of the slack here from the lights themselves right there on that brace that we saw earlier, and we zip tied the other part of this harness right here to the frame. That gets all that slack out, and then we've got the harness going in here, and we are just going to find a couple of wires we can zip tie that to along inside here to keep that slack from bouncing around inside. All right, so we have zip tied our excess on the other side, and you can see everything's secure. We can clip our zip ties off here in a minute, but now we're able to just push our wires up through here between the wheel well liner, right there between the wheel well liner, and up into the engine bay and pull them through. All right, so here we are in the upper engine bay, and we're gonna look down here alongside the battery, and it may be kind of hard to see it, but it's there. The other end of this cord that we shoved up in here is right down there, so we're going to pull that up through here, and then we're going to run alongside the harness here alongside the battery. And now we've got our wire here, and you can see I brought it up right along the battery casing right here. Hopefully you can see down in here. Yeah, there we go. See right along the frame. You want to keep it clear of any of the air conditioning hoses and things like that. Bring it right up tight against the wiring that goes along the battery, and you're going to zip tie it along there until you get it to the back side here. Right, now we talked about this ground ring and where it goes, and it is going to go right underneath of this ground bolt that is already there. So we're going to take that up and we're going to put this underneath of it, and then that's going to be our ground. If you don't know exactly where I'm pointing to, I'm going to stand back here. Here's the battery. I'm going to go right in here, right behind the battery casing. All right, now let's find our switch panel wires. They are not easy to find always. Ford does a good job of hiding them. And if you see where my hand is here, see my fingers, you see these little black tipped wires right here. They're hidden right underneath of the plugs here for the computer, hidden way up under there. They are actually taped up to something. You can give them a pull, and it should hopefully break some of that tape loose. But they are taped, again, right in here, looped over. You see the loops right there? But this is them. They're underneath of here. So we need to get those out of there. They are taped up there. You can get the tape broken loose, pull those loose, and you should have access to those wires. I'm pulling a little bit. Yeah, here they come. There they come. Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, I got them. And there they are. So again, they are not always easy to find, not at all, and there should be 6 of them. So here are our wires, and I'm not going to tell you which one is which because they can change. I want you to refer to the instructions there or your owner's manual, and depending on what model year your truck is, it's going to tell you what color wire is which switch. So you can use that to decide which switch you want to put your lights on. What you need to do for that switch wire that you want to put the lights on, you will clip the heat shrink cap off, and you will strip the end of the wire, and then you will make your connection to the red wire, in this case, for the fog light. If you wanted to put your amber backlight wire on a switch, you would choose one of the switch wires for that as well. If you got the Radiance in this case, and you wanted to use the optional custom backlight wire kit, then you're going to need to find the additional set of dead wires, which should be down here. And let me see if I can, actually I can see them right now. They're not easy to find either, but I'm going to show you where those are. Look at that black wire. This one right here. All right, and this is hard to see without some good light. I'll try to put the light there. Okay, do you see those things hiding right there? See the color? That is a group of the dead wires. They are hidden back here. Oops. They are hidden back here on the back side of that cable there. These wires do not have power, but these wires go inside the cab to the passenger side kick panel by the fuse panel. Again, to keep this video short, I am not going to go through that again. We did have a video on how to install the backlight wire, so I'm going to have you refer to that. I'm just going to show you the completed product here on this install. So if we're going to hook it up to the backlight in a Radiance kit to the backlight wire kit, then we're going to use one of these dead wires. So we've got all our connections made. Like I said, we've got our bullet connectors on here. This is not standard for installation. We did a little bit of custom installation, custom work here. Again, you're welcome to improvise and do a little custom work here if you wanted to do that on yours as well. You just need to go out and get some bullet connectors if you wanted to do it this way. Like I said, the nice thing about it is that you can move. For example, here's our harness. We've got bullet connectors on the end there. If I want to connect one light pair to this one, I can do that. If I want to move it next week and move it to a different switch, I can. If I wanted to add more equipment, it's nice because you can move back and forth. The other cool thing is you can really kind of improvise even more. For example, one of the things that I did, so I've got the three wires that come off of the harness here, right? For light pair 1, light pair 2, light pair 3. And they're numbered just like we had in the bottom there. So I can connect them to 3 individual switches. You can also twist all 3 pairs together if you're going to connect them with a butt connector. You can twist all 3 pairs together and connect them to one switch. However, if you did it this way, you can make a little pigtail harness like this and say, right now I want to put them all on one switch, but maybe later I might split them up and put them on different switches. If that is something you wanted to think about doing, you can make this pigtail connector, and for now we'll just plug all 3 of them into here just like this, and now they come into one. But later, if I decide I wanted to split these up again, I can. It's real easy. But for now, I am going to connect them all to one, and I need this wire. This is my switch number 2. That's where I want to put them. And voila, now I've got 3 into 1, and if I change my mind later, I can change my mind later. All right, and so the last thing we need to connect here is our white wire. Since this is a Radiance light, it has the amber backlight. I'm going to connect that to my dead wire set that we connected our backlight wire to. Just like I had mentioned before, if you want to see the installation of that backlight wire kit, that is in a different video. Again, this one's probably going to be pretty long as it is, so we'll keep that separate and you can watch that section as well. Now we've got all of our wires connected, and all we need to do now is just zip tie this harness and clean it up, test our lights, and we're done. All right, as you can see, now we've just got our ignition on. I don't have it running, but I have the ignition on, and our backlight wire kit is powering our amber. And so we see that's working. So now let's just flip on the second switch and see if our fog lights work. All right, looks like we have a successful install. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe below. Visit spvparts.com or specialtyperformanceparts.com for this kit and several others. Again, subscribe to the channel here and you'll be able to keep up with all the new videos of new products and new installations that we do quite often. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks again for watching.